Now, in conclusion, well, basically, part two, we were talking about the Midwest before and some of the characteristics of it. And remember, the Midwest pretty much starts west of New York and is kind of considered middle of America. Most people think of it as like small towns, but there are very large cities there. Chicago pretty much being the biggest. So when most people think of Midwest, they think of Chicago. It's kind of like the biggest city out there. Windy city. Some of the characteristics of the Midwest is small towns. Weather fluctuates. It can get cold. It can get very hot, depending on what it is, but it does get cold. Different things you mentioned, like tornadoes and things like that, sometimes do pop up in Kansas here and there. So but once again, like I said, very very great region of the country. I would have liked to explore there more, but haven't really been out there too many times. Few cities been through. I've been through Illinois and Michigan and Ohio and Indianapolis, but when you start talking like places like the Dakotas, and I want to focus on the Dakotas here, okay? Because I've known a lot of foreign students actually went to school in the Dakotas and they liked it. And I think one of the reasons why is that the Dakotas, North Dakota and South Dakota, they're very big states, and their campuses are very beautiful out there. It's just in the middle of nowhere. But now, if you're thinking about the future, these states, even though they're big, they have a lot of land. Real estate's pretty cheap out there. So sometimes people graduate from school and they set up, get a job out there, and then able to buy like a horse farm or whatever they do out there. So, there are some areas where there's some advantages if you're talking about, once you get out of school, like what do you want to do? Some people just like peaceful areas, and that's just a bit of a peaceful area. Now, the climate on the campus isn't necessarily reflective of the area you're in. So that's another thing. Remember, most campuses, they're like big cities within like another town. So we have this term here called a college town. So a college town is where the majority of the residents and the majority of the business and stuff, they all come from the college campus, and the college campus really sustains the community. A lot of people in the community work there. They don't necessarily go there, but they work there, and there are a lot of people on campus to the point that they outnumber the people in town. So, classic example, the school I went to, the kids on campus outnumbered the actual people in the town. So, these are some things that you want to look at. So, you're looking on the outside area, and sometimes it may be a little bit, maybe it's an area you're not too fond with. But the thing is, maybe on the campus, it's a whole different thing. The campus is almost like an army base. Once you're inside those walls, it's a whole different scenario. This also goes back to what type of camps do you want to go to. I mean, when you're looking at campuses outside the city a bit, they're contained campuses. Everything is in an area. But then when you start talking about some of these urban campuses, your campus is mixed up all in the downtown of these places. So it doesn't necessarily feel like you're on a college campus. It just feels like there's a couple of college buildings on the street. So you want to take that in consideration as well. Now, is the Middle East, I mean, not Middle East, a lot of students come from Middle East, but is the Midwest a place do you think a lot of you would like to come study? Are there any schools there that you're interested in, and do they have programs that you like? And judging from what I've said about it, maybe from what you've heard from other people, do you think this is a place where you would like to settle? Surprisingly enough, we have plenty of people that love the Midwest. They love Chicago, they love Detroit, they love St. Louis. Um, Me personally, even though I'm from America, that area isn't really an area I'm familiar with. Even the culture, I mean, the food is different, everything's different over there. However, we've noticed a lot of foreign students have gone over there and they've succeeded. Um, Sometimes what I've noticed is that the majority of a lot of colleges in the Middle West in the Midwest, they are somewhat reasonable in terms of prices, with the exception of like Northwestern and these other schools. But the Midwest in general, in terms of quality of living, when you're outside the city, it's a little bit cheaper than being in some of those big East Coast and West Coast cities. Although there are big, middle Midwest cities. But so let's say, for example, if you're going to University of Chicago, you're in Chicago. Rent in Chicago is not cheap, and these are things you got to figure it out. You have to figure it out as part of the as part of your package. Is this what you want? So I think that what everyone needs to do is, from the information that we're getting, just jot down the areas you think you're concerned about. If you're concerned about winters and you don't like winters and cold weather, please do not go to the Midwest, because the Midwest gets extremely cold. Try to go somewhere where there's a bit of a tropical environment that you may like a little bit better. And I'm saying this from the beginning because I could respect somebody who in the beginning is just saying, listen, I can't handle this. At least he or she knows which direction that they're trying to go. So the next video we'll probably start talking about some other regions of the country that you should know about, and the schools that are, the schools that are there. But those are some of the universities that stand out in the Midwest. I'd probably say like Case Western, University of Michigan, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Indiana, University of Chicago. I think I said it already. These are schools that stand out. These are schools that do stand out in them. And I would say pretty much every city has some sort of elite colleges that have great programs, and it may be for you. Now, here's the question. The funny thing is that even me reading off the list of some of these colleges in the Midwest, there are quite a few of them that I haven't heard of. So you have some of these small colleges that are in these little small towns no one even knows exist. So you sometimes can benefit by looking at some of these colleges that no one's ever heard of, and get some information. You may find they have a program that you like, or you may find out that it's affordable and you can handle it. And that's really important when you're dealing with these college tuitions, is what's affordable, what works, what doesn't. So that's my little spiel on the Midwest. I mean, if you love it, go for it. Look at some of these places. Try to visit during the winter. You can see how it is. I personally don't recommend going to some of these far out places in terms you start talking about South Dakota and North Dakota, unless you're pretty much sure yourself and you're okay being by yourself. We sometimes have a lot of young ladies that are looking to go to some of these universities that are kind of far. And I always just say, just be careful, because as a young woman, you kind of have to make sure that you have to be careful about all your surroundings, and being in unfamiliar surroundings, could pose a bit of a threat to you. So look at those. Would love to hear if somebody wants to go to South Dakota, North Dakota. They want to buy a horse and ride off to the sunset. But there's a lot of things going on out there in a lot of those schools. And remember that it does stretch. So like we said, you're talking about pretty much just west of New York, heading all the way out to like Chicago, St. Louis, Minneapolis, these places like that. But just remember, when you're signing up for the Midwest, you're signing up for cold weather. Just to let you know. All right? Peace.